The crystalline chamber stretched impossibly high above Ambassador David Torres. The walls pulsed with strange lights from 1,000 different alien species. David stood alone on a platform in the center of the massive room, wearing his simple Earth diplomatic uniform. Above him, arranged in a perfect spiral that seemed to reach into infinity, sat the members of the Galactic Council. These were beings unlike anything most humans had ever seen. Some looked like flowing liquid metal. Others appeared as pure energy contained in force fields. A few resembled nothing more than floating crystals that somehow thought and spoke. The Vorath Prime Speaker moved forward. Its body flowed like mercury, constantly shifting and changing shape. When it spoke, the words came through translation devices that made every species understand its meaning. Human, your species stands accused of 17 violations of the Preservation Accords. Your planet was placed under quarantine for a reason. You were meant to stay contained until we decided you were ready. David clenched his fists but kept his face calm. 3 months ago, Earth had finally invented the quantum fold drive. 3 months of celebration and hope for the future. Then the Council ships appeared in the skies above every major city on Earth. Their weapons were active and pointed downward. The message was clear. Surrender or die. We broke no laws we agreed to, David said clearly. His voice echoed in the enormous chamber. Earth never signed your preservation accords. We never even knew they existed until you showed up with guns pointed at our homes. A wave of shocked whispers passed through the assembled alien delegates. The Kelthram ambassador, a being made of living crystal that pulsed with different colors when it thought, projected feelings of anger and disbelief into the minds of everyone present. Ignorance does not excuse your crimes, the crystal being declared. Your species committed genocide. In your year 1947, a Vryn colony ship attempted peaceful first contact with your world. Your people shot it down. You murdered everyone aboard. Then you stole their technology to advance your own development unnaturally fast. David felt genuine confusion. 1947? We had no capability to shoot down advanced spacecraft in 1947. We barely had jet engines. Silence, the Prime Speaker commanded. The words seemed to vibrate through every molecule in the chamber. The evidence cannot be disputed. We found the wreckage. We found the bodies. We found your primitive weapons scattered across the crash site. The Vryn were peaceful researchers. Your species murdered them in cold blood and then used their technology to cheat your way to the stars. Something cold settled in David's stomach. Then understanding hit him like a physical blow. Roswell, he whispered. You're talking about Roswell, New Mexico. Your admission has been recorded, the Prime Speaker announced, its liquid form seeming almost pleased. The Council finds humanity guilty as charged. Standard protocol for genocidal species requires immediate sterilization of the homeworld. All colonies must be located and destroyed. The species itself must be prevented from ever threatening peaceful civilizations again. The Prime Speaker paused, then continued. However, the Vorath wished to propose an alternative to extinction. We believe in mercy even for violent species like yours. The liquid metal being flowed closer to David's platform. Its shape became almost predatory, like a shark circling prey. Humanity will become a client species under Vorath supervision. You will dismantle all your weapons immediately. You will submit your governments to Council oversight and control. You will cease all independent research and technological development. Everything you create, everything you discover, everything you build will be reviewed and approved by us first. This is mercy, human. The alternative is that your planet becomes a lifeless rock and your species becomes extinct. Choose now. David looked up at the spiral of alien beings who had decided Earth's fate without ever visiting the planet. They had never spoken to human leaders. They had never asked for humanity's side of the story. They had simply declared humanity guilty and demanded surrender. He thought about his daughter, Emma, only 5 years old. If he accepted these terms, she would grow up in chains. Every human would become a slave in all but name. He thought about every human who had ever looked up at the night sky, and dreamed of walking among the stars as free people. No, David said quietly. The entire chamber fell completely silent. Thousands of alien eyes and sensors focused on the lone human standing on the judgment platform. Repeat your statement, the Prime Speaker demanded. Its liquid form began to churn faster, showing agitation. David straightened his shoulders. Something in his posture, some quality in the way he stood, made several of the nearest alien delegates move backward instinctively. I said no. Humanity rejects your judgment. We reject your mercy. We reject your authority over our future and our freedom. Then you have chosen extinction, the Vorath Prime Speaker declared. Its body solidified into something that looked unmistakably like a weapon. By your own words, you have declared war on the Galactic Council. Your planet will be destroyed within the hour. Every human colony will be hunted down and eliminated. Your species will become nothing more than a cautionary tale we tell our children about the price of defying the natural order of the galaxy. David reached slowly into his coat pocket. Instantly, 100 different alien weapon systems locked onto him. Targeting lasers painted red dots across his chest. He carefully withdrew a small data storage chip and held it up where everyone could see it. Before you start killing 6 billion people, he said. And now his voice carried something the council members could not quite identify. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was something else entirely. Something that made ancient species feel a tickle of concern. I think you should watch what really happened at Roswell. He inserted the chip into the platform's interface port. Holographic displays erupted throughout the chamber, filling the air with images recovered from Earth. Military archives that had been classified for over a century. The Council watched grainy black and white footage of the Vrin ship entering Earth's atmosphere. They watched it emit scanning pulses towards cities and towns. They watched it deploy collection drones that descended toward hospitals and schools. They watched primitive human fighter planes scramble to intercept. The footage showed wave after wave of human aircraft attacking the advanced alien vessel. The Vrin defense systems destroyed the attacking planes effortlessly. Then the Council watched a young pilot named Thomas Garrett, his plane already on fire, his body already dying from burns, aim his disintegrating fighter directly at the Vrin ship's exposed power core. They watched the collision. They watched both vessels fall from the sky. The next footage showed military personnel approaching the crash site. They held weapons, but their faces showed fear, not aggression. The video showed them forcing open the Vrin ship's hull. It showed them finding the holding cells inside. The cells contained human children. Dozens of them. They sat motionless, their eyes empty. Their small bodies bore injection marks and surgical scars. The evidence of biological experimentation covered their skin. The chamber remained completely silent as the footage ended. The Vrin were not researchers, David said softly into that silence. They were hunters, collectors, kidnappers who experimented on our children. And they were not the first. After we recovered their ship, we found evidence in their database. 17 other ships had visited Earth over the previous 12,000 years. Small ships. Quiet ships. Ships designed to avoid detection while they took whatever they wanted. Your peaceful expedition was a hunting party, and Earth was their private game preserve. The Kelthram ambassador's crystalline body developed visible cracks. This evidence could be fabricated. Humans could have created false records to justify their crimes. You are absolutely right, David agreed calmly. We could have faked everything. Except we found something else in that wreckage. Something we spent 70 years trying to understand before we finally decoded it 3 months ago. His smile was cold and humorless. We found their mission logs, written in Vrin technical script. The same script I can see displayed on your own translation matrices right now. Would you like me to play those recordings too? Would you like to hear them discussing which human population centers had the best specimens for their experiments? The Prime Speaker's liquid form churned with what might have been uncertainty. Your point is acknowledged. The Vrin incident will be investigated further. However, this does not excuse your unauthorized technological development. It does not excuse your hostile stance toward legitimate council authority. Hostile? David's laugh was harsh and bitter. You aimed planet-killing weapons at our cities as your opening statement. You demanded our complete surrender without giving us a trial or even a chance to speak. You condemned us for defending our children against predators that you either could not detect or did not care enough to stop. He took a step forward. This time, none of the Council's weapons tracked his movement. We are not hostile. We are survivors. And we just learned that the galaxy is full of species who will either experiment on us, ignore our suffering, or demand that we become their slaves. So yes, Ambassador, we refuse your mercy. We reject your authority completely. And we are absolutely ready for whatever comes next. The Prime Speaker's form pulsed with visible rage. You are one planet. One single species. We are thousands of civilizations. We command fleets that can block out the light of stars. We have existed for millions of years while your ancestors still lived in caves and hunted with stone tools. You cannot possibly believe you can stand against us. Contact, a voice crackled through the chamber's communication system. A junior technician from one of the monitoring stations sounded panicked. Prime Speaker, we have a situation. A major situation. Every display screen in the chamber switched to show orbital sensor readings of the space surrounding the Council station. Where empty space had existed 15 seconds earlier, there were now ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands, human vessels of every size and type appeared simultaneously from quantum fold jumps so precise they had materialized inside the Council's defensive perimeter without triggering a single alarm. That is impossible, the Kelthram delegate whispered. Its crystal body flickered between colors rapidly, showing extreme distress. Quantum fold calculations for simultaneous jumps of that many vessels would require computational processing power beyond what any single species possesses. The mathematics alone would take decades to verify. David's cold smile widened into something almost frightening. You are absolutely correct. Which is why we did not use processing power to solve the problem. We used something you have apparently forgotten about after millions of years of technological supremacy and easy dominance. He gestured toward the displays showing the human fleet surrounding them. We used spite. We used desperation. We used the combined efforts of 7 billion people who really hate, being told they are not allowed to reach for the stars and walk free in the universe. The Prime Speaker's liquid form stabilized into something almost solid, almost defensive. This is your final warning, human. Power down your vessels immediately and surrender, or we will destroy every single ship and everyone aboard them. You are welcome to try, David said calmly. But before you give that order, you should understand something. Every human ship surrounding this station is crewed entirely by volunteers. School teachers, factory engineers, parents with children waiting at home, teenagers who barely qualified for basic flight training. They all know they will probably die in the next few minutes. They all volunteered anyway. They all came here knowing the odds. He paused, letting his words sink in. Because that is what you are actually declaring war against, Prime Speaker. Not our technology, not our weapons, not our ships. You are declaring war against the fact that we are the species that flies burning planes into enemy vessels to save our children. We are the species that turned 70 years of nightmares into the foundation for our freedom. We are the species that looks at impossible odds and certain death and says one simple word, no. The chamber remained frozen in a moment, balanced on the edge of a knife. The decision made in the next few seconds would reshape the entire galaxy. So congratulations, Galactic Council, David concluded. His voice carried to every delegate, every observer, every being who had come to witness humanity's judgment and expected execution. You just declared war on humanity, the deadliest species in existence. History will remember how that decision worked out for you. The Vorth Prime Speaker's liquid metal body rippled with barely controlled fury. Around the chamber, the other council members shifted nervously. Some species had never witnessed open defiance before. The concept itself seemed foreign to beings who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years without serious challenge. "You make a grave mistake, human," the Prime Speaker said. Its voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Your fleet may have surprised us with their arrival, but numbers mean nothing against superior technology. We have weapons that can tear apart the fabric of space itself. We have shields that can withstand the core of a star. Your primitive vessels are nothing but targets." David remained calm on his platform. He glanced at a small device on his wrist, checking something the Council could not see. "You are probably right about your technological superiority. You have had millions of years to perfect your weapons and defenses. We have had less than a century of real space travel. But you are making a critical error in your calculations?" "And what error is that?" the Kelthran ambassador asked. Its crystalline form had stopped flickering and now glowed a steady, suspicious orange. "You assume we came here to win a fair fight," David said simply, before anyone could respond. Alarms began screaming throughout the Council station. Every display showed the same horrifying information. The human fleet was not powering weapons. They were not charging shields. Instead, every single human vessel had activated their quantum fold drives simultaneously. The drives were building power, but the jump coordinates made no sense. According to the readings, every human ship was preparing to jump to the exact same location, the exact center of the Council station. "They are attempting mass suicide," the Prime Speaker declared, though its voice carried an edge of uncertainty. "They plan to materialize inside our station and destroy everything, including themselves." "Not quite," David corrected. "We are not suicidal. We are just very, very committed." A new voice cut through the chamber's communication system. It was human, female, and carried the crisp authority of a military commander. "Council Station, this is Captain Rebecca Stone of the Earth vessel Defiance. You have 30 seconds to release Ambassador Torres and withdraw all weapons from Earth orbit. If you do not comply, my fleet will execute Jump Protocol Samson." The Prime Speaker's form solidified into something resembling a blade. "We do not negotiate with terrorists." 20 seconds, Captain Stone replied calmly. Several Council delegates began speaking at once, their voices overlapping in panic. "The Thalos representative, a being of pure energy contained in a floating sphere. Projected waves of fear strong enough that even other species could feel them." Prime Speaker: "They are not bluffing," a technician reported. "Their full drives are fully charged. If they execute simultaneous jumps to these coordinates, the spatial distortion alone will tear this entire sector of space apart. Our shields cannot stop a quantum fold event from inside the defensive perimeter." "Nothing can?" "Then destroy their ships before they can jump," the Prime Speaker commanded. "We are trying," another technician responded frantically. "But they are using some kind of rotating shield frequency we have never encountered. Our weapons are firing, but the damage is minimal. We would need several minutes to break through their defenses." "We have 10 seconds." David watched the chaos spreading through the Council chamber. He felt no satisfaction, only a deep weariness. This was not what humanity had wanted. Earth's people had dreamed of joining a galactic community as equals, sharing knowledge and building friendships among the stars. Instead, they had found a cosmic empire that viewed them as either slaves or test subjects. 5 seconds, Captain Stone announced. The Prime Speaker turned its full attention to David, for the first time. The ancient being seemed to actually see the human standing before it. Not as a primitive specimen, not as a criminal to be judged, but as a representative of something dangerous, something unpredictable. "Stop this," the Prime Speaker said. "We can discuss terms?" 2 seconds. "I said stop." 1 second. "We agree to your terms," the Prime Speaker shouted. The words seemed to cause it physical pain. "Release the human ambassador. Withdraw our vessels from Earth orbit." "We agree." Silence fell over the chamber. The countdown stopped. The human fleet's fold drives began powering down, though their weapons remained active and their shields stayed at maximum strength. David let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "Captain Stone, stand down." The Council has agreed to our immediate demands. Confirmed, Ambassador, Stone replied. Fleet holding position. But sir, they will not honor this agreement for long. You know that? I know, David said quietly. Then louder, addressing the Council, you have agreed to release me and withdraw from Earth, but we need to discuss the larger situation. Humanity will not accept client species status. We will not accept Council oversight. We will not dismantle our defenses or stop our development. The Prime Speaker's liquid form churned with barely suppressed rage. You have won nothing here, human. You have only delayed the inevitable. The moment your fleet disperses, the moment you lower your guard, we will return with forces you cannot imagine. We will not make the mistake of underestimating you again. You are probably right, David acknowledged, which is why we are not leaving. And why our demands have only just begun. A murmur of confusion spread. Through the assembled delegates, David walked to the edge of his platform and looked up at the spiral of alien civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for so long. Here is what is going to happen. The Galactic Council will conduct a full investigation into the Vrin incident and all similar incidents involving illegal experimentation on pre-contact species. Every case will be made public. Every species involved will be held accountable. Impossible, the Kelfarm ambassador declared. Such an investigation would take decades. It would destabilize the entire council. Many member species participated in the old research programs before they were officially banned. Then I suggest you work quickly, David said. Second, the P. I will be expelled, Shrill said calmly. My memory will be archived and my living presence will be erased. It is the price for breaking our neutrality. But I am old, Ambassador. I have kept too many terrible secrets for too many years. Some truths are worth dying for. Before David could respond, his communicator buzzed urgently. Ambassador, we have a situation, a bridge officer reported. 3 Vorath warships just dropped out of fold space. They are demanding we surrender Keeper Trill for violating guild protocols. Trill's 4 eyes blinked in perfect sequence. They are faster than I anticipated. You must get that data to the Council before they can destroy it. We are not surrendering you, David said firmly. You must, Trill replied. I am unimportant. The truth in that crystal could free dozens of species from unjust quarantines. It could expose corruption that has poisoned the Council for millennia. My life is nothing compared to that. Stone's hand moved to her sidearm. They will kill you the moment we hand you over. Yes, Trill agreed. But they will do it quickly because they believe I am the only source of the leaked information. They do not know copies already exist. They do not know the guild has factions, and that some of us have been waiting centuries for someone brave enough to challenge the Vorath directly. David looked at the small alien who had just handed him a weapon that could reshape galactic politics. Are there more like you? More keepers who want the truth exposed? 7 of us participated in gathering this evidence, Trill said. I am simply the one chosen to deliver it. The others remain in position, ready to release more information if the Vorath try to suppress this batch. But you must move quickly. The Council vote on Earth's membership happens in 72 hours. If you present this evidence before the vote, the Vorath will lose all credibility. Other species will support Earth just to oppose them. The communicator buzzed again. Ambassador, the Vorath ships are powering weapons. They say they will fire on us in 5 minutes if we do not comply with their demands. David looked at Stone. Captain, prepare to repel boarders. We are not giving up anyone on this ship. Wait, Trill interrupted. There is another way. I can take a shuttle and surrender myself. While the Vorath are occupied with me, your ship can full jump to the Council station. They will not expect you to move so quickly. That is suicide, Stone said flatly. Yes, Trill agreed again. But it is suicide with purpose. Ambassador Torres, humans are not the only species tired of Council corruption. You're simply the first ones brave enough or desperate enough to fight back openly. If you expose this evidence, you will inspire others. You will create allies. You will change the balance of power. David felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Accept Trill's sacrifice and potentially save billions of lives across dozens of species, or refuse and risk the evidence being destroyed along with everyone on his ship. There has to be another option, he said. There is not, Trill said gently. Time is a river, Ambassador. We can fight its current or we can use it to reach our destination. I am old and have no destination left except truth. Let me serve that purpose one final time. Stone looked at David, her expression hard. Sir, it is your call. But those Vorath ships are getting impatient. David closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about all the human children who had been taken by the Vryn over thousands of years. He thought about the other species who might still be suffering under similar programs. He thought about the chance to expose the rot at the heart of the Council and create real change. Keeper Trill, he said slowly, if we do this, your sacrifice will not be forgotten. I promise you that. I do not seek remembrance, Trill replied. I seek truth. That is enough. 10 minutes later, David watched from the bridge as a small shuttle departed from the Perseverance. Inside, Keeper Trill sat alone, piloting the craft toward the waiting Vorath warships. The Vorath immediately locked the shuttle in a tractor beam and pulled it aboard the largest vessel. Full drive is charged, the helmsman reported. Ready to jump on your order. Wait, David said quietly. They all watched as the Vorath ship's airlock opened. They watched as armored Vorath soldiers emerged, their weapons ready. They watched as Keeper Trill was led out of the shuttle, small and fragile-looking among the massive warriors. Then they watched as the Vorath commander raised a weapon and fired without hesitation. Trill's wooden body shattered into fragments that drifted in the airlock's zero gravity. Jump, David said, his voice tight with controlled rage. Now, space twisted around the Perseverance as the quantum fold drive activated. The Vorath ships vanished from the view screen, replaced by the familiar structure of the Council station hanging in space like a jewel. Open a channel to the eldest, David ordered. Priority diplomatic emergency. The communication officer worked frantically. Sir, the eldest has not accepted direct communication requests in over 1,000 years. The protocols are not even in our database. Then make up new protocols, David snapped. Tell them a keeper of the Archival Guild was just murdered by the Vorath. Tell them we have evidence of council corruption going back 8,000 years. Tell them if the eldest does not see us immediately, we will broadcast this information on every open channel in the galaxy. There was a long pause. Then the communication officer looked up in shock. Sir, the eldest is responding. They are granting you immediate audience? Private chambers. You alone. David stood, clutching the data crystal that Trill had died to deliver. Captain Stone, if I do not return in 2 hours, release everything to the public networks. Every file, every record, burn it all down. Understood, sir, Stone said quietly, as David was transported to the eldest's private chambers deep within the council station. He tried to prepare himself for what was coming. He had evidence that could destroy the Vorath politically. But evidence alone was not enough. He needed the eldest to act on it. He needed the weight of the council's most ancient and respected member to ensure the truth could not be buried again. The transport beam deposited him in a chamber, unlike anything he had seen before. The walls were not metal or crystal, but seemed to be made of solidified time itself. Images of the galaxy's past flickered across the surfaces. The birth and death of civilizations? The rise and fall of empires. Moments of triumph and tragedy preserved in the very structure of the room. The eldest stood in the center, its environmental suit humming softly. You have made powerful enemies today, young human. I have made enemies who were already trying to destroy my people, David replied. At least now I know who they are. Show me what the Keeper died to deliver, the eldest commanded. David inserted the crystal into an interface port. Holographic data filled the chamber. Financial records, communications, transport manifests. 8,000 years of systematic exploitation and cover-up. Displayed in undeniable detail, the eldest studied the information in silence for what felt like hours. Finally, it spoke. The council is broken. It has been broken for a very long time. I have known this but lacked the will to fix it. You humans may be young and crude, but you have something we have lost. What is that? David asked. The courage to break things that need breaking, the eldest said. Very well, Ambassador Torres. I will support your species. But not because I believe you are righteous. I support you because you are necessary. The galaxy has grown stagnant. It needs disruption. You will provide that disruption whether I help you or not. I simply prefer to guide the chaos rather than be swept away by it. Then you will present this evidence before the vote? David asked. I will do more than that, the eldest promised. I will ensure the Vorath pay for their crimes. And I will ensure Earth receives full council membership immediately. Your species has earned its place through blood and sacrifice. Let us see if you can keep it through wisdom and restraint. The council chamber had never seen anything like this in its 10-million-year history. Where representatives usually sat in their assigned positions according to ancient tradition, now there was chaos. Species that had been allies for millennia refused to look at each other. The Vorath delegation sat isolated on one side of the chamber, surrounded by empty platforms as other species moved away from them. The evidence presented by the eldest had shattered comfortable lies that the council had maintained for thousands of years. David Torres stood once again on the judgment platform, but this time he was not alone. Representatives from 43 different pre-contact species stood with him. Some had only recently achieved spaceflight. Others were still decades away from developing quantum-fold technology. All of them had been kept under quarantine by the Council. All of them had discovered through the leaked documents that their imprisonment had nothing to do with their readiness and everything to do with political convenience or corporate profit. The Vorath Prime speaker had been stripped of its position. A new speaker, a Telphany energy being named Prism, now presided over the assembly. Its voice was clear and carried none of the arrogance that had defined its predecessor. This council recognizes Ambassador Torres of Earth, Prism announced. The floor is yours. David took a breath and addressed the assembled civilizations. 6 weeks ago, I stood on this platform and was condemned for defending my people against an attack we did not provoke. Today, evidence has proven that the Vryn ship destroyed over our world was engaged in illegal biological research authorized by the Vorath Collective. This research continued for 8,000 years. It affected 47 species. Thousands of individuals were taken from their homes, experimented upon, and discarded like laboratory animals. Murmurs of anger spread through the chamber. Several species had lost members to the Vryn and had been told they had simply disappeared or been killed in accidents. But the Vorath are not the only ones responsible, David continued, his voice hard. Every council member who looked the other way is responsible. Every species that benefited from research data obtained through torture is responsible. Every representative who voted to maintain quarantines they knew were unjust is responsible. This entire institution is built on a foundation of lies and exploitation. How dare you, a Kelthram delegate shouted. The council has maintained peace for 10 million years. We have prevented countless wars. We have guided younger species toward enlightenment. You have maintained control, David shot back. You have prevented change. And you have guided no one except those who already agreed with you. Any species that developed differently or challenged your authority was either crushed or quarantined until they gave up their independence. These are serious accusations, Prism said calmly. Do you have evidence beyond the Vorath crimes? I do, David confirmed. He activated new holographic displays. These are communications between 12 different council member species over the past 2,000 years. They discuss trade agreements for research data. They discuss which quarantined species show the most promise for exploitation. They discuss how to suppress species that might become political rivals if allowed to join the council as equals. The chamber erupted. Species began shouting at each other. Ancient alliances fractured in real time as delegates discovered their supposed friends had been plotting against them for centuries. Prism released a pulse of energy that forced silence. Order, we will have order or I will clear this chamber. The noise died down to angry muttering. Ambassador Torres, Prism continued, you have presented damning evidence of council corruption. What resolution do you propose? This was the moment David had been planning for. The moment that would either transform the galaxy or plunge it into chaos. I propose complete restructuring of council authority. The current system concentrates too much power in too few hands. I propose a new charter with the following principles. He displayed his proposals on the main holographic screen. First, no species can be quarantined without annual review by a neutral judiciary. Second, all council decisions affecting pre-contact civilizations must be approved by a majority that includes at least 3 species who achieved spaceflight within the last 1,000 years. This prevents ancient species from dictating terms to younger civilizations they do not understand. Impossible, several older species shouted. You would give equal voice to species that barely understand quantum mechanics. I would give voice to species who remember what it is like to struggle, David countered. Third, all council research programs must be publicly disclosed. No more secret projects. No more classified experiments. If the research is ethical, you should be able to defend it openly. That would compromise our security, the Phalos representative protested. Then perhaps your security is built on things that should be compromised, David replied. Fourth, any species that achieves independent spaceflight capability has the right to apply for council membership. The application can be evaluated, but it cannot be denied simply because existing members find the applicant inconvenient or difficult. You would flood the council with primitive species who lack the wisdom to govern. Galactic affairs, a Vorath supporter argued. I would give those species the chance to prove themselves, David said. The same chance you were given millions of years ago. Or have you forgotten that your own species was once young and struggling? The eldest, who had been silent throughout the debate, finally spoke. The humans' proposals have merit. The council has become an instrument of stagnation rather than progress. We have confused stability with justice. We have mistaken control for wisdom. Eldest, surely you do not support dismantling systems that have served us for so long, the Kelthram ambassador pleaded. I support ending systems that have served us too long, the eldest replied. We are comfortable. We are safe. We are also slowly dying. Look at the galaxy around you. Where are the new ideas? Where are the great discoveries? Where is the passion and creativity that once drove our ancestors to reach for the stars? We have sacrificed growth for security and called it wisdom. The chamber fell silent at the eldest's words. No one dared contradict the most ancient being in known space. There will be a vote, the eldest declared. All in favor of restructuring the council according to Ambassador Torres' proposals indicate now. The voting began. Species cast their decisions, and the results appeared on the main display. David watched the numbers climb, his heart pounding. They needed a 2/3 majority to pass fundamental charter changes. The count was close. Too close, then something unexpected happened. The Kelthram ambassador, who had opposed humanity from the start, changed its vote to support the proposals. Other species followed. The momentum shifted. When the final count appeared, the restructuring had passed with 71% support. David felt his knees weaken with relief. They had done it. They had actually done it. The proposals are adopted, Prism announced. The council charter will be rewritten according to these new principles. Implementation will begin immediately. It paused. There is one more matter to address. The application for Earth's full council membership. Given the circumstances, the eldest said, I move that Earth be granted full membership immediately. With all rights and responsibilities therein, no trial period, no probationary status. They have earned their place through courage and sacrifice. Seconded, the Keltham ambassador said, surprising everyone including David. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only the Vorath and their closest allies voted against. It is decided, Prism declared. Earth is hereby recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Torres, you now have voting authority on all council matters. Use it wisely. David bowed slightly. Thank you. I will do my best to represent both Earth and the principles of justice that should guide this body. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, the Keltham ambassador approached David, its crystalline form pulsed with colors he had learned to recognize as embarrassment. I was wrong about your species, it said quietly. I assumed you were violent primitives who would bring chaos to the galaxy. But you did bring chaos. The kind of chaos we desperately needed. You broke our comfortable delusions and forced us to confront truths we had been avoiding. Why did you change your vote? David asked. Because I remembered something my people had forgotten, the Keltham replied. We were once the young upstarts who challenged the old order. We fought for our place among the stars. Somewhere over the millions of years, we became what we once opposed. You reminded me of what we used to be. What we should have remained. The ambassador departed, leaving David alone on the platform. Almost alone. Captain Stone approached from the observer's gallery where she had been watching. Congratulations, Ambassador, she said. You just changed the galaxy. I hope we are ready for what comes next. We are probably not, David admitted. But we will adapt. That is what humans do best. Sir, there is one thing that concerns me, Stone said. The Vorath voted against everything. They lost power and prestige. They will not forgive that. They will be looking for revenge. I know, David said, which is why our real work starts now. We need to build alliances with the other young species. We need to prove that humans can be trusted with the responsibility we have been given. And we need to watch our backs constantly because you are right. The Vorath will come for us eventually. Then Earth needs to prepare, Stone said. We need to build our fleet, train our people, develop new technologies. If the Vorath attack, we need to be ready. David nodded. Agreed, but we also need to remember why we fought for this. Not to become another oppressive power, but to ensure no species has to face what we faced. Every decision we make from now on will be watched by dozens of civilizations who are hoping we live up to our words. They left the chamber together, walking through corridors that had witnessed 10 million years of galactic politics. The weight of what they had accomplished pressed down on David's shoulders. Earth was no longer alone and isolated. Humanity now had a voice in galactic affairs. But with that voice came responsibility and danger in equal measure. As they boarded the transport back to the Perseverance, David thought about Keeper Trill. The small alien had given its life to expose the truth. That sacrifice had made everything else possible. David promised himself that he would never forget that price. He would never take for granted the freedom that had been purchased with blood. Captain, he said as they settled into the transport, when we get back to Earth, I want to propose building a memorial. Something to honor all the beings who suffered under the old system. All the victims of the Vryn experiments. All the species that were suppressed and exploited. And especially for Keeper Trill, who chose truth over safety. That would be fitting, Stone agreed. What will you call it? David thought for a moment. The Monument to Necessary Defiance. Because sometimes the greatest act of morality is refusing to accept an immoral order, no matter who gives it. The transport accelerated away from the council station, carrying them back toward the Perseverance and eventually home to Earth. Behind them, the ancient machinery of galactic government ground slowly into motion, beginning the difficult work of transforming itself from an empire into something better. Something more just. David knew there would be setbacks. He knew there would be resistance and conflict. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous. But for the first time since the council ships had appeared over Earth, he felt genuine hope. Not hope that everything would be easy, but hope that humanity had proven it deserved a chance to shape its own destiny among the stars. And that chance? hard-won and paid for in sacrifice, was all they had ever really asked for 3 months after Earth gained full council membership. David Torres stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed human embassy station orbiting Earth. Through the viewport, he could see the planet where he had been born. Blue and green and beautiful, free, but freedom, he had learned, came with a price that never stopped being paid. "Ambassador, we have a situation," Captain Stone's voice came through his communicator. She sounded tense. "The Vorath have made their move." David's stomach tightened. They had been expecting this, planning for it, dreading it. "What happened?" "They have blockaded the Terminus system," Stone reported. Terminus is one of the newly freed species. They achieved fold capability 2 weeks ago and applied for council membership yesterday. The Vorath fleet moved into orbit this morning and declared the planet under protective custody for violations of development protocols that do not exist anymore. "How many ships?" David asked. 47 warships. The Terminus people have 3 outdated defense satellites and maybe a dozen patrol craft. It is not a fight. It is a massacre waiting to happen. David closed his eyes. This was the test. The Vorath were challenging the new council charter by attacking a species too weak to defend itself. If Earth did nothing, every other young civilization would know that the new rules meant nothing. If Earth intervened, it could trigger the war they had been trying to avoid. "What are our assets in that sector?" he asked. "The battle group Phoenix is conducting training exercises 2 full jumps away," Stone said. 18 ships, including the carrier Indomitable. We could have them in position within 4 hours. "Do it," David ordered. "Tell Admiral Marcus to proceed to the Terminus system immediately. But Stone, make sure he understands. This is not an attack. This is a rescue operation. We are protecting a council member species from illegal aggression. We fire only if fired upon." "Understood," Stone replied. "But Ambassador, the Vorath will fire upon us. They want this confrontation. They have been humiliated and they want to prove that the old rules still apply. That might makes right? Then they are about to learn a hard lesson," David said. "Send the order. And get me a direct channel to the eldest. We need council observers there to witness what happens." 2 hours later, David sat in the embassy's command center watching live feeds from the Terminus system. The human battle group had arrived and positioned themselves between the Vorath blockade and the planet. The Vorath fleet outnumbered them nearly 3 to 1. Admiral Marcus, a grizzled veteran who had fought in Earth's last major conflict before first contact, appeared on the main screen. "Ambassador, we are in position," Marcus reported. "The Vorath are demanding we withdraw. They claim this is an internal enforcement action that does not concern Earth." "Tell them the council charter says otherwise," David replied. "Any action against a member species is a council matter. They are in violation of the new laws they voted against but are still bound by." Marcus nodded and cut the connection. David watched as the message was transmitted. The Vorath response came quickly. Their flagship, a massive vessel called the Dominance, powered up its weapons. "All ships, this is your commander," Marcus's voice broadcast across the battle group. "Raise shields. Prepare for combat. But do not fire first. We are here to protect, not to provoke. Hold formation and wait for my order." The tension was unbearable. David could see the tactical displays showing weapon locks flickering between the 2 fleets. One trigger-happy gunner on either side could start a war that would engulf the galaxy. Then a new signature appeared on the sensors. A single ship, ancient and massive, dropped out of fold space directly between the 2 fleets. The eldest's personal vessel, something that had not moved from its dock in over 3,000 years, hung in space like a statement of intent, the eldest's voice broadcast on all frequencies. "Vorath fleet, you are in violation of council law. You will withdraw immediately or face sanctions that will strip your species of all council privileges." The Vorath commander responded with barely controlled rage. "The eldest forgets its place. We do not take orders from human sympathizers." "I forget nothing," the eldest replied, and its voice carried the weight of millions of years. I remember when your species was young and weak. I remember when you begged the council for protection from raiders who saw you as prey. I remember granting you that protection and helping you build the civilization you now use to oppress others. And I remember that power without wisdom leads only to ruin. We will not abandon our sovereignty to appease primitive species, the Vorath commander declared. Then you abandon your council? Membership? The eldest said simply. Choose now. Withdraw and face investigation for your actions, or continue this illegal blockade and be expelled from the council you helped build. The silence stretched. David held his breath. Everything they had worked for balanced on this moment. Finally, the Vorath fleet began powering down weapons. The ships turned slowly and jumped away one by one, leaving the Terminus system in peace. Admiral Marcus let out a breath. Stand down from combat alert. Maintain defensive posture but lower threat level to yellow. David sagged in his chair with relief. They had won without firing a shot. But he knew this was not the end. The Vorath would try again, more carefully next time. The eldest's image appeared on David's private screen. You have won a battle, young human. But the war for the soul of this galaxy has only just begun. The Vorath are not the only species who resent the changes you have brought. There are others who see the old ways as superior. They will test you again and again until you break or prove yourself unbreakable. We will prove ourselves, David said. Whatever it takes. That is what concerns me, the eldest replied. The galaxy does not need another dominant species enforcing their will on others. It needs something new. Something better. Can humans be that? Or will you simply become what you fought against? The question haunted David long after the connection ended. It was the question he asked himself every day. Earth now had power in the council. Earth had allies among the younger species. Earth had proven it would fight for what it believed was right. But power corrupted. History showed that over and over again. How long before humans started making the same compromises that had led to the Vorath's crimes? How long before protecting Earth's interests became more important than protecting justice? A week later, David attended the memorial dedication ceremony on Earth. The monument to necessary defiance had been built in Geneva, where the old United Nations had once stood. It was a simple structure, a spiral of stone rising toward the sky with names carved into every surface. Names of humans taken by the Vryn, names of other species who had suffered under the old council system. And at the very top, a special place for Keeper Trill of the Archival Guild, David gave a short speech to the assembled crowd, but his words felt inadequate. How do you honor sacrifice when the fight that sacrifice enabled was far from over? How do you celebrate freedom when you know enemies are already planning to take it away? After the ceremony, he met with representatives from 17 different species. They called themselves the Alliance of Free Worlds, civilizations that had been freed by the Charter reforms. They wanted Earth to lead them. They wanted human protection and human guidance. We cannot be your protectors, David told them honestly. We can be your allies. We can stand with you. But the moment we start making decisions for you is the moment we become the new oppressors. Each of your species must find its own path. A young representative from a world called Haven spoke up. She was barely out of adolescence by her species' standards, but her eyes held the determination of someone who had seen too much suffering. Our path leads through danger, Ambassador Torres. The Vorath are not the only ones who want us back under control. At least 4 other major species have made threatening gestures toward Alliance members. Without Earth's fleet, we will be conquered or destroyed. Then we teach you to build your own fleets, David replied. We share our technology. We train your officers. We help you become strong enough to defend yourselves. But we do not fight your battles for you unless you are truly facing extinction. That is what we are facing, another representative insisted. Extinction or slavery. Those are our only options without Earth's military support. David looked at the gathered aliens, these beings from worlds humanity had barely known existed a year ago. They were terrified and desperate and looking to Earth as their savior. The temptation to accept that role was almost overwhelming. Earth could become the dominant power in the galaxy. Human fleets could enforce human ideas of justice across 1,000 worlds. They could build an empire and call it liberation. No, David said firmly. I understand your fear. I understand your desperation. But Earth will not become the galaxy's police force. We will support you. We will defend council members when they are attacked illegally. But we will not build an empire, even a benevolent one. History shows that empires always become corrupt, always become oppressive, always become the very thing they were created to fight against. Then you condemn us to defeat, Haven's representative said bitterly. I challenge you to victory, David corrected. But victory on your own terms. Victory that you earn and can therefore keep. Earth will help you build the strength to stand on your own. But we will not let you become dependent on us. That path leads nowhere good. The meeting ended with frustration on both sides. David knew he had disappointed beings who desperately needed hope. But giving them false hope, hope built on Earth's power rather than their own strength, would ultimately destroy them that night. David stood again in the embassy observation deck. Looking down at Earth, Captain Stone joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You are making enemies among our friends, she observed, handing him a cup. Better than making friends who are really just clients, David replied. The Vorath built their power by creating dependent species who could not survive without them. We cannot repeat that mistake. Even if it means those species might fall to aggression from others? Stone asked. Even then, David said, because if we save them, we own them. And the moment we own them, we become responsible for every decision they make. We become their parents instead of their partners. That is not what we fought for. Stone sipped her coffee. The Vorath are regrouping. Intelligence suggests they are building a coalition of species who oppose the charter reforms. They are calling it the Stability Accord. They plan to present it to the Council as an alternative to what they call Earth's dangerous radicalism. Of course they are, David said tiredly. Change always creates opposition. We knew that. The question is what happens when that opposition becomes violent, Stone said. Because it will, Ambassador. The Vorath will not settle for political defeat. Eventually they will strike at Earth directly. When that happens, how do we respond? David thought about that question for a long time. Finally, he said, we respond by being better than them. We defend ourselves without becoming them. We fight when we must, but never forget why we are fighting. We prove that a civilization can be strong without being cruel. That is the only way to win the war that really matters. The war for what kind of galaxy this will be, Stone said. Exactly, David agreed. The Vorath see the galaxy as a hierarchy. The strong rule the weak. That is the natural order to them. We have to prove there is another way. A way where strength is used to protect rather than dominate. Where laws apply equally to everyone. Where young species have the same rights as ancient ones. That is a beautiful ideal, Stone said. But ideals do not stop weapons fire. No, David admitted. But they give us something to fight for beyond mere survival. They give us a reason to endure the cost and pain of staying true to our principles, even when compromise would be easier. 6 months after the Terminus incident, Earth's transformation of the galaxy continued. 23 species had joined the Alliance of Free Worlds. Human engineers worked on 12 planets, helping build defenses and infrastructure. Human teachers trained alien officers in tactics and strategy. Human diplomats worked in council chambers to pass reforms that further limited the power of ancient species to oppress younger ones. And the Vorath waited, building their coalition, gathering their strength. Preparing for the confrontation that both sides knew was inevitable, David Torres stood once more in the council chamber, presenting another proposal. This one would create an independent defense force loyal to the council itself rather than any individual species. It would ensure that no single civilization could veto actions meant to protect the weak. The vote was close. The reforms passed by the narrowest margin yet. The opposition was growing stronger. As David left the chamber, he passed the Vorth's new ambassador, a being even more hardline than the disgraced prime speaker. Their eyes met for just a moment. In that moment, David saw the promise of violence to come. He saw the determination to destroy everything Earth had built. He saw hatred that would not be satisfied until humanity was crushed, but he also saw something else. He saw fear. Fear that Earth's ideas might actually work. Fear that the galaxy might actually change. Fear that the old order might truly be dying. That fear meant they were winning. Not the battle, but the war that mattered. The war for the future. David walked back to the human embassy, ready to face whatever came next. Earth had declared war on an unjust system. That system was fighting back. The cost would be high. The danger was real. But the alternative, surrendering to oppression and calling it wisdom, was unacceptable. Humanity had reached for the stars and found them filled with wonders and horrors in equal measure. But they had also found something else. They had found that even in a galaxy millions of years old, there was still room for new ideas, still room for change, still room for species brave enough or foolish enough to stand up and say the one word that tyranny could never tolerate. And that word, spoken by beings willing to back it up with everything they had, was enough to change the galaxy forever. Reservation accords will be revised. No species can be held under quarantine without clear evidence of immediate danger to themselves or others. No species can be prevented from developing technology or exploring space simply because the Council deems them not ready. The Prime Speaker's voice was cold as ice. You demand we write laws that have maintained galactic peace for 10 million years. I demand you stop treating entire civilizations like children who need your permission to grow up, David countered. Third, Earth will be granted provisional council membership with full voting rights. We will have a voice in decisions that affect us. Absolutely not, several delegates shouted at once. Then we stay right here, David said calmly, with our fleet surrounding your station and our fold drives ready to execute Samson Protocol at any moment. We can stay here for months if necessary. We brought supplies. Did you? The chamber erupted in arguments. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries began shouting across the spiral of platforms. Alliances that had held for millennia began showing cracks. The Vorth Prime Speaker tried to restore order, but its voice was drowned out by the chaos. Finally, a new voice cut through the noise. It was ancient, slow, and carried a weight that made every other species fall silent immediately. The eldest, a being so old that most species had forgotten what it actually looked like beneath its environmental suit, spoke for the first time in 3,000 years. The human speaks truth that we have ignored too long. Every eye and sensor in the chamber focused on the eldest platform, located at the very top of the spiral. We have grown comfortable in our power, the eldest continued. Its voice sounded like continents grinding together. We have forgotten that we too were once young species struggling to survive. We have forgotten that laws meant to protect can also oppress. The humans' methods are crude, but their grievances are valid. Eldest, surely you do not support their outrageous demands, the Prime Speaker protested. I support investigation of truth, the eldest replied. I support revision of laws that no longer serve justice. I support giving voice to those we would silence. It paused, and something in that pause made even the Prime Speaker shrink back. I do not support the arrogance that has infected this council. We are not gods, we are merely old. Age without wisdom is just accumulated foolishness. The chamber remained silent, stunned by the eldest's words. There will be a vote, the eldest declared. Investigation into historical violations of contact protocols. Revision of the Preservation Accords. Provisional membership for Earth pending full review. All council members will cast their decision within one standard cycle. Until then, the human fleet will be granted safe passage and diplomatic immunity. Any species that violates this decree will answer to me personally. The threat in those last words was unmistakable. The eldest might be ancient, But it had not survived for millions of years by being weak. The Prime Speaker's liquid form seemed to collapse in on itself. The eldest has spoken, the vote will proceed. David felt his legs almost give out from relief. He had been prepared to die today, prepared for humanity's gambit to fail and for Earth to face extinction. But somehow, impossibly, they had gained a foothold. Ambassador Torres, the eldest said, its ancient eyes focusing on the human. You have courage. But courage without wisdom leads only to graves. Your species has one breathing room, nothing more. The hard work begins now. Can humanity prove itself worthy of the freedom you demand? David met the eldest's gaze without flinching. We are not asking to be judged worthy. We are asking to be allowed to prove ourselves for good or ill by our own choices. Give us that chance and we will show you what humanity can become. Then I will watch with great interest, the eldest said. For you have done something I thought impossible. You have made this ancient council feel young again. You have reminded us that the universe still contains surprises. Whether that is a blessing or a curse remains to be seen. As David was escorted from the chamber under diplomatic protection, he looked back one last time at the assembled council. He saw fear in some faces, hatred in others. But in a few, he saw something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Outside the station, the human fleet maintained their positions. Thousands of ordinary people from Earth, holding the line between their home and destruction. David knew this was just the beginning. The council would not simply accept these changes. There would be resistance. There would be sabotage. There would be species who saw humanity as a threat that needed to be eliminated. But for now, Earth had bought itself time. Time to build, time to prepare. Time to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Captain Stone's voice came through his communicator. Ambassador, we are receiving your location, preparing to extract you. That was either the bravest or most insane thing I have ever witnessed. David smiled tiredly. Probably both, Captain. Probably both. 6 weeks after the confrontation at the council station, David Torres sat in a cramped office aboard the human diplomatic vessel Perseverance. The ship orbited a neutral moon while the council conducted its investigation into historical contact violations. The vote on Earth's membership had been delayed 3 times already. Nobody was surprised. A knock on the door interrupted his reading of the latest intelligence reports. Come in, he called. Captain Rebecca Stone entered, her military uniform crisp despite the long hours everyone had been working. Behind her came someone David had never seen before. The alien was small, barely reaching David's shoulder. Its skin looked like polished wood, and its 4 eyes blinked in sequence rather than simultaneously. Ambassador, this is Keeper Trill of the Archival Guild, Stone said carefully. It came aboard 10 minutes ago in an unmarked shuttle. It says it has information about the Vryn incident. Information the Council does not want you to know. David stood slowly. The Archival Guild was legendary, even among the Council species. They were the record keepers, the historians, the ones who preserved truth no matter how uncomfortable. They served no government and took no sides. If a keeper was here voluntarily, the information must be significant. Please sit, David offered, gesturing to a chair that Trill politely ignored. I will stand, thank you, Trill said. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. This conversation must be brief. My presence here violates several guild protocols. But sometimes truth is more important than rules. What truth? David asked. Trill produced a small data crystal from within its robe. The Vryn incident was not an isolated case. But you already know this from their ship's logs. What you do not know is the scale. What you do not know is who authorized it. David felt his stomach tighten. Tell me. Over the past 50,000 years, the Council has documented contact with 117 pre-space civilizations, Trill said. These are the official records. First contact protocols were established 30,000 years ago. Before that time, there were no rules governing how advanced species could interact with primitive ones. And after the rules were established? David asked, though he already suspected the answer. The violations continued, Trill said quietly. The council made the protocols strict and public, but enforcement was left to individual species governments. Some followed the rules honestly, others found loopholes. The Vryn were not rogues, Ambassador Torres. They operated under a license granted by the Vorath Collective. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. The Prime Speaker's people authorized the Vryn to experiment on humans? Stone asked, her voice dangerous. Not just humans, Trill corrected. 47 different pre-contact species over 8,000 years. The Vryn specialized in biological research. They paid the Vorath Collective a percentage of their findings. In return, the Vorath provided protection and ensured no investigations reached the council floor. David sat down heavily. The Prime Speaker condemned us for defending ourselves against an attack they authorized. Worse, Trill continued. When your primitive aircraft destroyed the Vryn ship, the Vorath panicked. They had lost a major source of research data and profit. They needed a scapegoat. So they buried the evidence of the Vryn's true mission and rewrote the incident as unprovoked human aggression. They placed Earth under enhanced quarantine, claiming your species was dangerously violent. The truth is, they wanted to ensure no other species discovered their illegal research program. Why are you telling us this? David asked. The Archival Guild never takes sides? We do not take sides, Trill agreed, but we serve truth. And the truth is that your species has been grievously wronged. When you presented evidence at the council station, it was the first time in 8,000 years that anyone challenged the official Vryn narrative. The Vorath have been scrambling to suppress the investigation ever since. Stone leaned forward. Can you prove any of this? The data crystal contains copies of financial records, communication logs, and transport manifests, Trill said. All archived in the guild vaults. All authentic, all devastating to the Vorath if made public. David took the crystal carefully. What happens to you when the guild learns you gave this to us?